Hey everybody, Jason Creel. This is the Lawn Care Life. We got special guests here, Caleb Allman. Caleb is a hardscaper, landscaper. You know, I guess those go together and oftentimes. Do those typically go together, hardscaping?
I would say so, yeah. Hardscape's become kind of its own discipline almost anymore, that it's become really a specialized field, I'd say, but generally they're going to go hand in hand.
All right, so anyway, he does stuff that I don't do. Well, like most guys are mowing grass, and I do a lot of weed control and fertilization, but I thought it would be good to have somebody that knows a little bit more about the hardscaping and landscaping. So on this video, when you're talking about how to start a landscaping business, you know, some of the principles will probably apply whether you're mowing grass or doing weed control, things like that. But we're more specifically talking about actually landscaping, you know, like planting bushes and trees and doing hardscapes and stuff like that. So let's get started right now. Let's just take it from there as far as how to start a hardscaping business, landscaping business. When you maybe take us through your quickly through your journey, because I know you had some failures before you had some successes, and so we'll start with that. Take us through your story, and then we'll get into how somebody could start that was looking to start today.
Sure, man. So we have a company called Allman Landscape. We're a landscape design build company based in Southeast Ohio, just southeast of Columbus, Ohio. So yeah, I started out mowing grass like everybody seems to in high school, and then I wanted to get more into landscape construction, landscape design work, and just as my career progressed initially, that's what we started out doing. About 10 years into that, I crashed my first company, bellied it up the whole bit. Then the guy was making a face. I don't know what that was about. But so it's probably the kids and these internet and cameras. But so crashed that company. I got married. My wife helped me start a new company, and then we got really heavy into pretty much mostly hardscape construction. So you know, starting a hardscape construction company or hardscaping business, landscape business, whatever, especially on the hardscape end of things, hardscape is one of those things. There's so many moving pieces and so much gear and equipment and things needed to really make an efficient and productive hardscape company. It's something I don't recommend folks really dip their toe in the water for too long. You've got to jump in and get on it, because all of this material weighs so much, and it's so hard to transport and so hard to configure, and you got to sell the work, and you've got to know what you're doing and put in quality installs. So you know, you might try a job or two just to see if it's something you really enjoy doing, but I wouldn't dabble in the hardscape end of things, because again, you got to have a skid steer, you got to have machinery, you got to have compactors and saws, specialized tools, because the work is so hard and the margins can be tough sometimes. And even if you run it to where your margins are great, you still have to be super productive and super efficient. So you need a dump truck, you need skid steer loaders, mini excavators, all this stuff to really be like a peak performing hardscape contractor. So I don't want to be discouraging, but you have to really be in love with hardscaping to really make it work, because you gotta really, it really takes quite an investment to get a hardscape company the way it needs to be. Landscape, not so much. I still always recommend having, as soon as you can afford to, have a mini skid steer loader of some kind, a tracked buggy, whatever the case is, some stuff that saves energy, saves labor, you know, saves that fatigue. That's the big thing. You don't want your guys to be totally gassed out at the end of the day. So I'm an advocate always for mechanizing as much as possible, buying as much machinery as you possibly can afford every single year, because that is, you know, that machinery is always on site Monday morning. It's not hungover. It's not getting somebody pregnant. It's not, you know, just causing you all sorts of hassles. Now, I've had some old junky equipment that has caused me a lot of hassles, but we're always working towards advancing the company and our equipment and assets and stuff. So, Jason, super long intro to a short question there, but there's a lot to it. But you know, on the landscape end, you can start a lot easier just going into basic landscape installs versus like the hardscape stuff.
So you know, if you're going to get started in it, are we talking about like sod installation would be pretty basic, or ripping out somebody's flower beds and put, you know, all their shrubs and everything, rip all that out and put new stuff down? Are those kind of the easy break into the industry things that you're looking to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, a basic like landscape renovation is a pretty good entry level thing to do for, you know, if you want to start getting into more landscape design build work. Read some books about landscape design, so you can begin to get some, you know, if you're going to do the design, you know, begin to understand some basic principles of design work. Like, we're going to put taller plants on the corner of houses, right? And we're going to keep stuff in front of the house a little bit lower. We want to make sure we're specifying the right plant in the right location. So we don't want to plant, shade-loving things then full sun. They're going to fry, in a hot summer afternoon, and vice versa, right? So we want to make sure we're beginning to learn and always learning what the best and the right plant for the right location is, and then understanding some basic design concepts, and then again, I think it's just anything you do, you should go all in on. I mean, would you recommend, saying, hey, get into fertilizing and spraying, but just, half tail it? No, you got to get licensed, you got to get insured. You need to understand how to identify what weeds are and why things are performing certain ways. So like, I never recommend like just dabbling into something other than like maybe your first try at it, but you really got to do really a quality and professional job, you got to go all in, I think. And you can do it financially, safely, to start with, but you've got to really be ratcheting it up in super heavy labor and intensive work fields like landscape design and construction, hardscaping, etc.
Can somebody mow grass and do these things on the side, or is it kind of like, if you're going to get serious into landscaping, do you need to pretty much focus on that, or can you like be mowing grass 4 days a week and then you pick up that occasional landscape job and go rent a machine on the weekend or something? How do you see people do that?
I think on the landscape end of things, be it, you just do a one-off sod job, or, a small little landscape install where you tear out all the shrubs on the front of a house and replace them. That stuff's a little easier to just dabble in, where you might do that 1 or 2 days a week. And, even begin, maybe you downsize your lawn route as you get more and more of that kind of work going. Because I believe you get known more for what you do, and you get to do more of what you're known for doing, right? And so the more of that work you kind of begin to build rapport for and reputation of, you'll start to do a lot more of that work if that's the direction you want to go, right? So, the landscape end, I think you can do, a little less like dedicated, let's say, 1 day a week or something like that. But when it gets into the hardscape stuff, because of the amount of equipment you need to buy to really be an effective, efficient company, that stuff is overhead that needs recovered constantly. So, not something I don't think you can really dabble in, like hardscape construction, like doing a patio or a driveway or whatever. Like once it's kind of a Pandora's box. Once you open that lid, man, you kind of got to be all in it if you're going to spend the money and the gear to be as efficient and productive as you need to be.
So what's the advantage of getting into hardscape? If it takes a lot more equipment, it's a little more, labor intensive, but you got, the stuff's harder to move around and all that. So does that more profitable, less for you to go build a brick paver patio for somebody than installing new shrubs? Is that why you do it, because it's more profitable, or you just enjoy it?
Yeah, for me it's a labor of love. I mean, we love it. The margins are great too, and it's all in how you craft it. Like any business, I think there can be great margins in any business. It's just how you get it in your head that you can cut waste, cut inefficiencies, and be super productive and sell high margin jobs and be confident in your pricing that you provide a super great product and it's deserving of high margins. And so it's like anything. I think anything can be made into anything. I think you can make a super unproductive lawn route a super productive lawn route if you do it right and you consolidate it and get good route density and all that stuff. But on the hardscape end of things, it's hard work, and that's why you have to mechanize, and you've got to buy all that machinery and all those gas saws and all that stuff that makes it as easy as possible. And then you do the quality of work that'll command high margins, and it's totally doable to make really good money in hardscaping. But it won't come necessarily your first year out. It takes time.
All right, if somebody's mowing grass or doing weed control like I do, then it's kind of recurring revenue. I get that customer. I might have them for 5 or 10 years, same, but a hardscape job, you may get a repeat customer once in a blue moon, and you may get some referrals from them. But is it a shift in mindset that I've got to be constantly selling and looking for new leads to get that next, paver install job or next sod job? Because once you finish that job, you're pretty much done with that customer, at least for the foreseeable future. Is that talk about that, the difference in customer acquisition versus lawn maintenance, and hardscaping and landscaping?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's definitely, warrants discussion, right? So, when you do one install, it's unlikely you're going to do a lot more for them down the road, but we do have clients that we do a fair amount of repeat work for. Now, I've been in contracting for 20 years, so we've built up a really nice book of business as far as, you know, clients we've worked for and have done multiple and repeat jobs for. So in that regard, it's, you know, it's going to be harder for the new guy that's just starting out, and it's going to take you 3 to 5 years, I believe, to like really begin to build that book, you know, that book of work or that clientele base, unless you already have a lawn route, which you have a marketing base. You can be pushing work, you know, and advertisements of work too, right? So that's a great thing about building a lawn route is, you know, you have people that are generally, you know, going to be receptive, you know, to hiring that out. But yeah, I mean, it's a constant thing where it's a monster or an animal you're constantly having to feed and keep going. But, you know, if you do quality work and there's just always less and less people willing to do this hard work, if you do a good job and you run an ethical business and you're an ethical person and you're likable and you can, you know, be somebody that people want to invest their money with, the work, you won't have a lot of trouble getting the work. It might take a year or something, you know, to build that rapport. But these days, I think if you're willing to work, the work is there. So, you know, it's not a blanket statement because it still takes time to build up that rapport. But I think if you're willing to work these days, the work is going to be there for you.
Okay, so I'm just trying to summarize here.
Sure.
We get into landscaping, we might take on some install jobs with plants and sod and things like that. But then once you, the hardscaping takes more equipment, and you're saying once you jump into that, you don't want to go buy a skid steer to do one job a year. You know, it's
Right.
kind of like once you get that expensive equipment, like, all right, we're now officially hardscapers. And once you start hardscaping, is what are you doing besides like brick paver patios? You know, we look at something like this.
Sure.
You know, so you build those things, but like what are you doing? Like outdoor kitchens or fire pits or what else kind of things could somebody do when they're starting out without, you know, what's a beginner project, I guess
Sure.
you would say?
I always recommend for folks that want to get some brick paver work under their belt. I mean, the first immediate thing you can do is go to your local like hardscape supplier, see if they've got some cheap material that's been sitting out back and they either want to give it away or get rid of it. Buy it, you know, super cheap discount because it's just been sitting out back forever. It's got some green mold growing on it, whatever. And go install a, you know, a 5 foot by 5 foot pad at your house in the backyard. Just, you know, watch YouTube, check out our channel, whatever you got to do. And learn and get some practice, you know, on your own property, or go build one at your grandma's house, whatever. And just go build a little practice pad, tear it down, do it again. Or another great place to start, you know, just even promote to your existing route is, you know, just if they've got like trash can pads, just a little, you know, 3 foot by 6 foot trash can pad on the side of the house, whatever, made out of pavers. And it's a great place to begin to get a little bit of experience and learn and begin to figure it out of like, okay, when we do a big one, this is how, you know, the things I learned just on this little one are going to apply to the big jobs too. And it's just even that little pad's a lot of labor. We got to get all that soil out. We got to get the base back in. We got to compact it properly, set our pavers at the appropriate pitch, compact those pavers with the compaction equipment. Because that's the one thing is you can rent the skid steer loader, no problem. You can rent the compactors, you can rent the saws, all that stuff. But pretty much after, I mean, you can rent a skid steer loader, the big cost stuff, indefinitely, right? But it's the saws and the compactors and the paver handling tools and all that stuff you need to buy as soon as you can, because that rental cost, you're losing equity, and the running to get the rental stuff just takes a ton of time. So that's why that dabbling in the hardscape thing is challenging, because just all the gear you need, man, it's tough. And I'm not saying this as discouragement. I want to encourage people to get into it because it's a rewarding business. It's fun to build this stuff. But I don't want to sell anybody short of like how much work it is, you know.
And when you, and I'm wrapping this up here, but when you look at a job put in pavers, is there kind of if you know my pavers cost $4,000, or I'm just throwing a number out, how much you need to charge? Like, how do you come up with a number without lots of experience so that you don't just take a beating on your first job?
So it's always about knowing the cost of your job first. So you know X amount of square foot of pavers. I mean, if you need 200 square feet of pavers, they're going to be however much they are in your region, right? So you're going to have $1,000 in pavers, and the base is going to be, you know, it just doesn't hurt to round up, you know. So you're going to have $1,000 in pavers, and you know, $400 in base material, and $200 in poly sand. Get all those costs figured out. And that stuff's pretty easy to get together because it's all gonna be based off of square footage, right? We know we're building a 200 square foot patio. Then from that, it's like, okay, I'm gonna need to rent a skid steer for the week just to be safe. That's gonna be $800 or $1,000 or whatever it is. We put that on there. Then after that of like, okay, I think worst case scenario, I'm gonna be here all week with 3 guys. So we're gonna have 120 man hours in this thing. And I'm paying these guys X, and then my overhead per week is this much as well. I gotta, at a minimum, charge, you know, $4,000 for this install or whatever it is. And then from there, it's, okay, how much money do we want to make and how much do we need to make? Because you need to understand your business too, right? We need to know how much money you're trying to make on your own salary, as well as, you know, pay your guys, make money on top of that, make money on top of all your materials and your supplies, which is something you have to know as a business on the back end, period. You can't just, you've got to learn that too. I mean, that's the #1 thing too. You've got to know what you need to charge per man hour. Of, you know, when your guys are out on a job, each guy needs to, you know, bring into the company $2,000 or $3,000 a week or whatever it is. You have to know all those numbers of your business. So if you want to learn hardscape work and learn how to price it, the first thing is just get all your costs in a row. That's the #1 thing. And then from there, begin to figure out what I need to make on top of that to survive, make a really good living, make money so that some year down the road you can buy beautiful Florida property. We're in this to make real money. That's the point.
Appreciate Caleb being with us. Hopefully you got some good information there on how to start a hardscape or landscaping company. Something I kind of want to do, feel intimidated by a little bit, but I know Caleb, they do offer some resources over at the hardscapeacademy.com. And then also you can follow him at Kid Contractor, his podcast, Kid Contractor Podcast, on a major podcast platforms. And we're here interviewing Caleb at the Hype House, which is also sponsored by the Hardscape Academy, as well as Brian Fullerton's Launchpreneur Academy. So go check those resources out as well. Appreciate you watching. Leave a comment below. We'll talk to you later.